You've probably been told to be yourself, but what if that's not as simple as it sounds? What if the self you think you know is just one layer of a deeper map, one that shapes how you see the world, make decisions, and even love? Carl Jung believed our minds follow patterns that shape how we think, feel, and act. His ideas inspired modern personality tests like the Myers-Briggs, but he wasn't trying to put anyone in a box. He wanted us to understand the deeper architecture of the mind. And it all comes down to one question: who are you, really? To Jung, the human psyche isn't a single entity, but a conversation between three forces: the ego, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. The ego is the conscious I. It's the part of you that wakes up, remembers your name, and plans your day. It holds your current thoughts, emotions, and sense of identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are. But the ego, Jung said, is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it lies the personal unconscious, a store of forgotten memories, repressed experiences, and unprocessed emotions. Elements from this layer can surface in dreams, sudden reactions or feelings that seem to appear out of nowhere. Even deeper is the collective unconscious, a universal layer of the psyche containing archetypes, recurring symbols and patterns found across cultures like the hero, the mother, the shadow, and the wise old man. We may never meet these figures directly, yet they shape the stories we're drawn to and the roles we play in life. Jung wasn't just theorizing. He was mapping the human condition, the tension between who we are, who we pretend to be, and who we might become. He called that journey individuation, the lifelong process of integrating every part of yourself, even the ones you'd rather ignore. That's where the 4 psychological types come in, 4 different ways of processing the world. They're not boxes to trap you in, but lenses that shape how you interpret reality. First, the thinking type. For the thinking type, truth is found through logic. Decisions are weighed, not felt. These are the people who crave structure, who find comfort in reason. When a problem arises, they step back and analyze every angle, mapping solutions before acting. In relationships, they might seem detached or overly critical, but it's rarely about indifference. They're searching for the most rational way to fix what's wrong. A broken appliance, a conflict with a friend, or even a complicated emotional situation. If you've ever argued with someone who says, "Let's look at this objectively," you've met a thinking type in action. They excel in careers and roles that value strategy, organization, and precision. Engineers, analysts, planners, where clarity matters more than sentiment. But reason has its limits. A thinking type can struggle to interpret emotions that defy logic, to see that what's illogical to the mind can make perfect sense to the heart. They might unintentionally hurt others with blunt honesty, or dismiss feelings they can't quantify. Their drive for logic often makes them excellent problem solvers, but it can also create distance in personal relationships. Loved ones may feel a thinking type is cold or unfeeling, even when their intent is to help. Learning to pause and acknowledge emotion, both theirs and others, can unlock deeper understanding and richer connections. And maybe that's Jung's first lesson here. Every strength, when overused, becomes its own blind spot. The same clarity that allows a thinking type to solve complex problems can also keep them from understanding the messy, unpredictable world of human emotion. Second, the feeling type. If the thinking type searches for truth through logic, the feeling type finds it through connection. They make decisions based on values, intuition, and empathy, on what feels right, not just what is correct. They sense the emotional temperature of a room instantly and often carry unspoken burdens, even without being asked. When faced with conflict, they seek balance, understanding, and emotional resolution. Their questions are often, will this hurt someone? Will it help? They notice tension before anyone else does and naturally act to soothe it. Feeling types often act as the emotional compass of their social circles, sensing what others need before it's spoken. Yet, this sensitivity can be draining, leaving them exhausted or resentful if they ignore their own needs. Developing boundaries doesn't diminish their empathy. It allows them to sustain their compassion without losing themselves. Their empathy can be a gift, creating deep bonds and a nurturing presence, but it can also blur the lines between their needs and everyone else's. A feeling type might stay in relationships that are unhealthy, avoid confrontation to prevent hurt, or overcommit to help others while neglecting themselves. Yet, in a world that often prioritizes logic over compassion, their ability to understand and feel deeply becomes a subtle kind of genius. Feeling types hold communities together, noticing the nuances of human connection and creating harmony where reason alone can't reach. Third, the sensing type. Sensing types are rooted in the here and now. They notice the small details others often miss, the way sunlight falls on a leaf, the rhythm in someone's voice, the taste of a perfectly brewed coffee. Reality, for them, is concrete, what they can see, hear, touch, or experience firsthand. They thrive on practical action, hands-on problem-solving, and direct experience. Ask them to describe a memory, and they'll recount every detail in vivid sensory color. Ask them to predict the future, and they shrug, "I'll cross that bridge when I get there." Sensing types keep life grounded. They turn ideas into routines, dreams into results, and plans into actions. They're the builders, the doers, the ones who make sure the world actually works. Sensing types often excel in careers or hobbies that demand precision and attention to detail, from craftsmanship to healthcare. Their mastery of the present moment makes them reliable and dependable, but it can also make long-term planning feel uncomfortable. Learning to pair their practical skill with occasional forward thinking can broaden their impact without sacrificing their grounded nature. But this focus on the tangible can sometimes make them miss subtle patterns or abstract possibilities. They might overlook the bigger picture, the underlying themes, or the potential consequences that aren't immediately visible. That's where the opposite type steps in. Fourth, the intuitive type. Where the sensing type sees facts, the intuitive type sees possibilities. They live with one foot in the future, spotting connections and patterns invisible to most people. To them, meaning is everywhere, in coincidences, symbols, gut feelings, and ideas that haven't yet been proven. They are the dreamers, visionaries, and innovators. They can sense where things are heading long before anyone else notices, and are drawn to exploring ideas, concepts, and possibilities rather than the mundane details of daily life. But intuition comes with challenges. Intuitive types can lose themselves in abstraction, overlook practical necessities, or chase patterns that exist only in their imagination. They may struggle with implementation or feel restless when anchored to routine. Intuitive types often inspire others with their ideas and vision, but they can also feel misunderstood or isolated when others can't see the possibilities they see. Yet when grounded, their gift is extraordinary. Grounding their insights with practical steps or partnering with a sensing type can help them bring their visions to life, turning abstract inspiration into tangible outcomes. Intuitives can transform uncertainty into creativity, chaos into insight, and raw imagination into strategies, stories, or inventions that inspire others. They show us that the unseen can be just as powerful as the tangible. Personality trait orientation. Together, these four functions, thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition, describe how we each filter experience. But Jung went further. He believed that each function could operate through two distinct orientations, introversion and extraversion. Introverts turn inward. They draw energy from reflection, ideas, and solitude. Extroverts turn outward, toward people, action, and the external world. Neither is better. They're simply different directions of focus. An introverted intuitive might be a philosopher, living in ideas and symbols. An extroverted sensing type might be a chef, fully alive in the physical act of creation. And maybe that's the beauty of Jung's theory. There's no single correct way to be human. Only patterns that, once seen, help you understand your own rhythm a little better. Personality test. Jung's ideas later inspired the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which translates these patterns into the well-known 16 types, like INFJ or ESTP. But he never meant for his system to become a label. He wanted it to be a mirror, one that reflects how we each make sense of reality. The point isn't to say, "I'm a feeling type," and stop there. It's to ask, how does that shape the way I see the world? What am I not seeing because of it? Because every type, no matter how opposite, carries part of the truth. The thinker reminds us to question emotion with reason. The feeler reminds us that logic means little without empathy. The sensor anchors us in the present, while the intuitive shows us where we could go next. When these forces work together, the psyche becomes balanced, not ruled by one voice, but harmonized by all. Jung often said that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off parts of yourself, but by integrating them. The process he called individuation is less about becoming perfect and more about becoming complete. It means acknowledging the shadow, the traits you deny or project onto others, recognizing the persona, the mask you wear to fit in, listening to the anima or animus, the inner opposite that helps you understand what you've neglected, and slowly, patiently, allowing all these parts to coexist within oneself. It's not an easy process. Most people spend a lifetime circling it. But Jung believed it's the only path toward real freedom, to live not as fragments, but as a whole. So, what does all this mean for you? Maybe you're the kind who needs evidence before believing. Or maybe you're the kind who senses truths you can't quite explain. Maybe you live through your feelings, reading people like open books. Or maybe you move through life by instinct, one step, one moment at a time. Whichever you are, you're not wrong. You're just wired to perceive differently. And once you understand that, once you see how your mind naturally leans towards certain ways of thinking, feeling, and sensing, you can make better choices. You start building relationships not by trying to change people, but by learning their language. The next time someone frustrates you, the overthinker, the dreamer, the realist, the empath, you might pause and wonder, what if they're just seeing the world through a different function? And if that's true, then maybe understanding others starts with understanding yourself. Finding oneself. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That sentence holds both warning and hope, because to truly know yourself, you must first face the parts you've hidden and the patterns that have silently guided you all along. But the reward is peace, not the shallow kind that comes from comfort, but the deep kind that comes from inner alignment. In the end, Jung's 4 types aren't just categories, they're mirrors, 4 ways of seeing, 4 ways of being. And the moment you recognize your own reflection in them, something shifts. You stop trying to fit into someone else's story and begin the slow, lifelong work of writing your own. You're not here to pick a type and stay there. You're here to understand how each one lives in you, waiting to be noticed, balanced, and brought into harmony. Because that's the real meaning of Jung's work, not to define who you are, but to help you finally meet yourself. I hope this helps you understand yourself a little better and see the patterns that shape your world. If this video guided you on that journey, watch this next video to explore even more about who you are.